All right, welcome. We're here again, ready to sift through all the noise and bring you some clarity, maybe even a few surprising insights. Today, we're jumping straight into the crypto world, really zeroing in on Hyperliquid's native token, HYPE. It's been on a bit of a wild ride lately. Our mission to cut through that noise, look at the market moves, what experts are saying, and, the actual project data to figure out what's really happening. We've got the market updates, commentary from the community, even some internal numbers. So get ready for hopefully a compelling chat about price, sentiment, and the mechanics behind this particular digital asset. We're aiming for those key takeaways, not just about the ups and downs, but the real potential here.
Yeah, and that's exactly why looking at these movements, even these sharp short-term ones, is so important. It's not just tracking numbers, right? It's about getting a wider view of the whole crypto market. We're here to pull out those key observations from the info you shared, look past the immediate price, and try to grasp the forces underneath and what they might mean for HYPE going forward.
Okay, so let's unpack this right away. Hyperliquid's token, HYPE, it's been making headlines. And, well, not entirely for great reasons initially. It recently had a pretty significant price correction. Now, just for context, this dip came right after HYPE flew up to a new all-time high, touching almost $46. But as of June 19th, 2025, we've seen it trading below $37. That's a drop of, around 20% in just the last 48 hours or so. So the immediate question for you listening is probably, what does this sudden drop actually mean for HYPE? Is, a red flag or something else?
Well, what we're seeing here, even with a sharp, 20% move like that, it's actually quite a natural part of how any asset finds its price, especially right after hitting an all-time high. You can almost think of it like the market needing to take a breath after a big sprint uphill. Traders watch these moments really closely because they often signal a period of market consolidation. It's when the market is basically, digesting that big move and figuring out where the new floor might be. These corrections can sometimes be a sign of a healthy market, surprisingly, not just a negative thing. It's part of the process, particularly for an asset that just shot up so fast.
That's a good way to put it, the market taking a breath. And as you'd expect, when HYPE takes such a noticeable breath, the crypto community definitely lights up. Lots of people jump onto platforms like X, sharing their theories. We've seen some traders talking about the serious nature of this move. Some are even predicting prices could fall, maybe down to the low mid $20. So yeah, definitely some nerves out there. But here's where it gets really interesting, maybe a bit more layered. We also hear from more seasoned folks like Altcoin Sherpa. He commented, and I'm quoting from our sources here, HYP is pulling back a bit. I think that this thing goes to low $30 if Bitcoin continues to bleed and chop around. Still, it's one of the best coins this cycle, and I think it'll eventually go much higher. I'll still keep a bunch of it staked for now. That quote really highlights, I think, a quite optimistic long-term view, even with this short-term dip. It frames the current situation not as a disaster, but more like a temporary phase in a much bigger positive picture for the asset.
Exactly. And what's fascinating there is how Altcoin Sherpa clearly separates the immediate technical picture from his, let's say, deeper long-term belief. He's acknowledging the current market vibe, right? And how Bitcoin's own choppiness can drag things down. That's a big factor everywhere in crypto. But despite that, he holds on to the strong conviction about HYPE's fundamental value, calling it one of the best this cycle. And it's not just talk either, saying he'll keep a bunch staked. That shows real belief. It's putting your money where your mouth is, essentially. Now, on the other side of the coin, we have someone like Byzantine General, another voice people listen to. He's stressing the technical analysis side for HYPE. He specifically mentioned being concerned about a pretty important level for HYPE, and he pointed to a long-term trend line that started forming back in April. His point is, if HYPE breaks below that trend line, especially with what he called a serious open interest buildup around there, well, that wouldn't look good technically. It perfectly shows that dynamic in crypto markets, doesn't it? You've got traders glued to the charts, the levels, the indicators right now.
And then others are weighing those against their fundamental beliefs about where things are headed long term. It's this constant dance between the immediate technicals and the underlying story.
That's a great point, and it really captures why these markets are so, complex, but also kind of captivating, right? I think for most folks watching, it's about finding that balance. You can't just ignore the technical levels or the short-term buzz because that's where the immediate risk and reward often lie. But you also probably can't build a solid long-term view only on that noise. The real trick, and what we try to help you with, is figuring out which signals matter more and when. A strong underlying story, like maybe what Altcoin Sherpa is seeing, can sometimes push through short-term technical weakness. But that doesn't make the dip feel any less real if you're trading it day to day. So, speaking of the real story, the fundamentals, let's shift gears a bit, away from the predictions and speculation towards the actual data and what the project itself is doing. We got data from Hyperdash that shows something pretty interesting. A majority of traders, 51%, are actually short on HYPE right now. And it says 31% of the open interest is covered. Could you maybe break that down for our listener? What do short positions and open interest really mean here? And what could that imply for HYPE soon?
Absolutely. So when we say a majority of traders are short HYPE, it basically means they're betting the price will go down. They borrow HYPE, sell it, hoping to buy it back cheaper later to return it, and they keep the difference as profit. It's a way to make money if the market falls. Now, open interest, that's the total number of active derivative contracts, like futures, that haven't been settled yet. So when Byzantine General mentioned that Syria's open interest build up at a certain price level, it means there's a lot of money, a lot of contracts concentrated right there. It becomes a real battleground level between the bulls and the bears. What's really interesting about having a high percentage of shorts, like this 51%, is that it can sometimes set the stage for something called a short squeeze. Think of it like a coiled spring. If HYP's price suddenly reversed and started climbing unexpectedly, those short sellers would start losing money fast. That pressure can force them to buy back HYPE quickly to cut their losses. But all that forced buying creates a sudden jump in demand, pushing the price even higher, even faster. It's a classic crypto scenario, can lead to some really sharp upward moves.
Ah, the short squeeze. Right. That turns bearish sentiment on its head pretty quickly sometimes. So, okay, on one hand, we have a decent chunk of traders betting against HYPE short term, potentially creating that coiled spring. But you also mentioned the project itself is taking action. How does that fit into this whole picture, especially with all those bearish bets piling up? Does one cancel the other out?
Precisely. And this is where we move from just pure speculation to actual fundamental strength, because there's a really crucial piece of positive news here. The Hyperliquid Assistance Fund. It's been reported that this fund just recently bought back another $2 million worth of HYPE. Now, this isn't just random. It's not a one-off thing to pump the price. It's a direct result of a really powerful mechanism that's actually built into the Hyperliquid ecosystem. Here's the key part. An amazing 97% of the fees traders generate on the Hyperliquid platform go straight back into buying HYPE tokens off the market. So think about that. The more people trade on their platform, the more fees are generated. And a huge chunk of those fees automatically creates buying pressure for HYPE. It's like a continuous built-in demand engine for the token itself. This buyback system is a really significant inherent strength for HYPE. It stands in pretty stark contrast to the sometimes fickle nature of short-term trading sentiment. While traders are debating chart lines and immediate price points, the project has this fundamental value-supporting thing happening constantly in the background.
That's a really key nugget of knowledge, I think, for anyone trying to understand HYP's longer-term potential and why some experts still sound so confident. It shows this underlying resilience that can fight back against short-term negativity. I find that really compelling.
Okay, yeah. Let's try and pull these threads together then. What does all this actually mean for you listening? Whether you're deep in crypto already or maybe just getting curious. First, I think it's a really powerful reminder about, the natural rhythm of crypto prices. Corrections happen, even sharp ones. They're just part of the deal, especially after big run-ups. They aren't always a sign something's fundamentally broken. Often it's just the market rebalancing itself. Second, we've clearly seen the different viewpoints from market analysts. Some are laser focused on the immediate technicals, the short-term plays, while others are holding on to a bigger picture, a longer-term conviction, often based on a deeper understanding of the project. And third, maybe the most important point today is understanding a token's built-in economics, things happening behind the price chart, that automated buyback from trading fees. That's a perfect example of a fundamental driver. It's like an economic engine constantly working to support HYPE's value. It really drives home the idea that even when prices dip, there can be these really significant underlying strengths and long-term potential. Things highlighted by smart observers, and importantly, by the project's own design.
Yeah, and this really brings up an important question for you to think about. How do you weigh these different types of information? You've got the precise technical analysis, you have the chart levels, then you have the general market mood, the sentiment. And then you have these concrete built-in economic factors of the project itself. How do they all fit together for you? My advice generally is always try to look beyond just the immediate price swings. Sure, price action gets the headlines and it creates opportunities and risks short term. But really understanding the broader context, and especially those mechanisms designed to support a project's value, That's absolutely key for making informed choices and getting a real sense of the long-term potential in assets like HYPE. It's seeing the forest, not just the trees, right?
So as you think about HYPE's journey, this recent dip, and all the chatter around it, maybe consider this. How much weight do you personally put on expert predictions that are mainly focused on short-term price moves versus those fundamental built-in support systems like that Hyperliquid buyback mechanism? Which signals do you feel are ultimately more telling about long-term potential in such a fast-moving market? Something to ponder. Thanks so much for joining us for this exploration today.
Definitely. There's always more to learn in this space. It changes so fast, and really getting the why behind the what,
Yeah.
well, that's probably your best shortcut to being genuinely well-informed.